Hi everyone, I'm Chloe and welcome back to my channel and back to the first episode in the Authenticating series, which is super exciting. In today's video, you'll be learning how to authenticate a Prada Saffiano leather bag with my 6-step checklist. And you'll want to stick around to the end of the video because you have to follow all 6 steps and check it off your list in order to truly authenticate the handbag. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to authenticate your own Prada handbag. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell to make sure you don't miss another video in this series as well. And let's just get right into it. Okay, so my 6-step checklist to authenticate a Prada handbag, particularly we'll be looking at Saffiano leather handbags today, is first the logo, the interior, the stitching, the hardware, the factory tag, and last but not least, the authenticity card. And we'll be going through each one of these and talking in detail on what to look for in a real Prada handbag and what to look for in a fake, because those are getting so good now and really realistic looking, so you gotta watch out for those. And today we'll be looking at the handbag behind me, that Prada handbag, and then also we'll be looking at this one as well, because they're a bit different and you always wanna make sure you have some comparisons. Okay, so first up on the checklist is the logo. So the Prada logo says Prada in all capitalized letters, and it usually will say either like Milano underneath or Milano and then DAL 1913. So there's a variation on those and that's okay. But the main thing to look out for is the R we have to look out for in the logo. So for example, you'll see the R and it should have this space on the second, on the right leg. So it should have a space, it shouldn't just go straight down. So you should see that pretty clearly in your Prada bag. And there will also be a little more of a space in between the R and the next A because it has to make room for the longer shape of the second leg on the R. To see the crest of Savoy on some of the Prada bags as well, like on the gray one, and that goes back to the history lesson on Prada in our previous video. It'll be linked down below if you want to learn more about that. So that's common to see as well on the logos. Another common logo that you'll see on Prada handbags is the inverted triangle with the Prada logo inside. And one thing to note about this is that you should make sure that the inverted triangle is stitched on the handbag well. There should not be loose threads or anything. Sometimes with fakes, it won't be made properly and you can tell the quality is just off. And also the color of leather on the inside of the triangle should be the same color as the rest of the leather on the handbag. Okay, so we are checking bag number 1, and as you can see, the R is correct. There's that space right there under the right R and it's angled, and then there's a little more of a space in between the R and the A, and it says Prada Milano, and it has the little crest beneath there for the House of Savoy, and it says DAL 1913, which is on this little guy right here. And to just do another quick check on the other bag, we can see that it says Prada Milano, so that's correct. And you can see the logo is correct as well with the R and the extra space between the A. And make sure that the logo on it says Milano, it never says Milan, because Prada never has just Milan on there, it's going to be Milano. So that's another thing to look out for that some counterfeiters miss. And with the logo as well, make sure it's the right font. Just do a double take when you're authenticating your bag and make sure it's consistent. And just look up some images online to make sure, like on the actual Prada website, to make sure it's the same font, because that's another thing that sometimes counterfeiters can do and mess up on, is just be sloppy and do a different font that's not actually the real font, but very, very close. So look at that in detail. Okay, so my 2 handbags checked off on that list for the logo. We verified that and they're authentic based on what we saw, but it does not stop there. We need to go through the whole checklist and make sure that every single thing on there is checked off. up, number 2 on the checklist, is the interior of the handbags. So for the Prada handbags that have a leather interior, the leather should be a soft calfskin or lambskin, and it should be the same quality as is on the outside of the bag if there's that soft leather on the outside of the bag. It should not be cheaper looking or just less good of quality on the inside. It should still be high quality. And then if there's a fabric in the inside of the bag, then it should have a print on it going back and forth with Prada. On the first, it should be on the very first start of the bag, and it'll say Prada just repetitively, and then underneath that there'll be the rope chain design, and then underneath that it'll be Prada. But on that one, the second Prada, it should be upside down from the first. So that's something to really look out for, and then it'll just repeat going back and forth throughout the whole handbag and on the interior. So watch out for that. And then also on the interior of the handbag, you don't have to worry about having the space in between the second leg of the R, because in the interior of the Prada handbags, they don't worry about that or the A. So don't be alarmed with that. That's something to look out for, and it's still authentic if it doesn't have the same space as it has everywhere else in the bag. So another thing to note on the interior of the handbag is that on most of the fabric interior for the handbags, it'll have a plaque and it will say Prada Milano, or on more of like the leather handbags in the interior, it will have a printing that says Prada Milano or Prada made in Italy. The newer ones will say Prada made in Italy, but if it says Prada Milano, that's also still okay, because that's some of the older versions, they have that. And one thing to note is to make sure that you check the logo on the outside and what it says on the inside, because a lot of the times counterfeiters will say Prada Milano on the outside on the logo of the bag, and then on the inside it'll say Prada and then Milan or made in Milan, something like that, not Milano. So that's something to really note. Okay, now we'll do the check on the inside of the bag that has the fabric. As you can see, I had to pull out the fabric so you could get a good look at the repeating pattern. And you can see there's the ceramic plate that says Prada Milano right there. So this looks good. It has the right pattern going back and forth. So that's all correct. And I'll show a version that's up close as well. Okay, and then the second check on the leather inside of the second bag. As you can see, it is of nice quality, like calfskin leather. It's very soft, and you can just tell that it's very good quality. It says Prada made in Italy right there, and it's a little worn. That's just because I've had it for a while. So that checks the list as well. Okay, next up on the checklist is stitching. Stitching is a big one. It's a small detail that sometimes is overlooked when you're trying to authenticate a bag. So for the Prada handbags, the stitching will always be the same color as the color of the leather or whatever material is on the handbag. It will not be different. Prada just does not do that. And something else to note is that the Prada stitching will be at an slightly upward angle. So that's a very small detail that a lot of the times is a pretty good sign that it is authentic when you're going through your checklist, because that just takes too much detail and precision for the counterfeiters to do. So look for that slightly upward angle of the stitching, and it should all be consistent. It should not have any mistakes in it, just very high quality. Here we go. On the second one, you can see the stitching is black and it goes up at an ever so slightly angle as well. Alrighty, and next up on our list is hardware. So all Prada hardware, the zippers, the logo, the straps, any detailed hardware will be consistent throughout the handbag. So it will never be gold and silver. it will either be all gold or all silver. And those are the only two metals colors that they use, is gold and silver. So there should never be any brassy look or any rose gold or two-tone. It will just be gold or silver. So check that. Another thing to note as well is the zipper. It should have an engraved Prada on the zippers if it is a gold metal zipper. And then on any little details with knobs or anything that's hardware, it will usually have Prada engraved in it as well. And the Prada should be very legible. It shouldn't be hard to read or sloppy because, again, Prada, great quality and detail. So look for that. Another thing on hardware is the zippers. So Prada uses an assortment of zippers. So you'll want to check the brand of the zipper underneath on the inside of the zipper in the purse. So the brands that Prada uses is YKK, Riri, Opti, Lampo, and IPI. So look for those as zippers. So they'll only use those and nothing else. Now to authenticate the bags. So the first one is silver hardware all the way through on the shoulder strap and on the logo. There's no zipper on this one. The hardware right here is also the silver. So that one checks off the list. Okay, next up we have the black Saffiano Prada bag, and you can see there's gold hardware throughout. It is consistent. It has these as well, and it says Prada twice. The zipper is also gold. All of the detail throughout, that detail right there, and the logo on the front. So that passes the test as well. Let's look at the zipper now. The zipper on this bag is actually a leather zipper. So we don't need to look right there for a engraved Prada logo. We'll just look on the inside of the zipper and make sure it's one of the brands that I mentioned. You can see it is correct. It's the Riri is the brand of the zipper. So we're good to go on that. Number 5 on the list is the factory tag, otherwise known as the manufacturer's tag. So this tag should be a little white square tag on the inside of the Prada bag, and it will be unique to show the 3 numbers of the factory where the bag was made. So you can trail that back, that history. And we'll just take a look at the bags that I have. And another thing to note though also is that some counterfeiters will also have that little white tag in there, so don't use that as the sole thing to authenticate your Prada bag. Remember, let's go through the whole checklist. Okay, so here is the factory tag right there. It's a very small little white tag with the 3 numbers, and you have to reach around and really feel for it. So always check for that as well. There's the footage of finding that little factory tag as well. So those both have the factory tags, and let's move on. Okay, the last item on the checklist is the Prada authenticity card. So that comes in this little black envelope. As you can see, it is embossed and it's black on black. Certificate of authenticity. Okay, so then inside of this, you will have the authenticity card, the Prada authenticity card, and it will just be this plastic credit card looking card, and it'll have a magnetic strip, and it will have the information on the back. So that information will authenticate the bag, and it also is to note that people who counterfeit the bags will also include an authenticity card. Want to make sure, you know, that the logo is also correct, what we talked about earlier, and everything. But they might just put some random numbers on the back. So what you can actually do is you can contact Prada and you can ask them to check your authenticity card, and they can go back in their database and let you know and make sure it is authentic and it is a real bag. Okay, so that wraps up our 6-step checklist to authenticate a Prada bag. And the bags I showed today checked off the list, and they are both authentic. I also did buy them from a Prada retailer. So it's important if you're buying a Prada handbag to make sure it's either from a licensed retailer like Neiman Marcus or Saks, or the actual Prada store, versus if you're buying a pre-loved bag online. You just have to make sure you go through the 6-step checklist to make sure that it is authentic, because counterfeiters out there are getting smarter and they're looking very real. We like to call them super fakes or AAA. So yeah, you now are able to authenticate a Prada handbag. So congratulations, use the checklist. Don't forget to check every little step off the list. It's very important to make sure it is in fact real. The bags we talked about today are both made of Saffiano leather, which has a really cool history on how it's made. It's unique to Prada. It was patented for them, and I have a video on that. So you can check that out as well and learn more about how they make Saffiano leather and the history of that, and I'll link that below as well. Okay everyone, thank you for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you'll never miss another video coming up in our series on authenticating luxury designer handbags, and learn about the history of each designer as we go. See you next time.